Today's how-to is going to be a little bit different. I got some requests to do the My Way badge flight. If you don't know what that is, there's a notoriously difficult to get achievement in the game, My Way, which the listed requirement is I believe a 300-mile flight from parking to parking or gate to gate, or presumably any combination of the two. I'll go parking to gate with no assistance, with all the assistance options turned off. So let's take a look at the flight. So if you go to our downloads page, as always, all downloads are free to everyone. You can load any of these up in Microsoft Flight Simulator, fly it yourself. We're going to search for My Way badge. And probably the advantage of doing a fly through of this is if you go to the My Way badge flight, it's kind of long and rambling explanation. What I did at the end of this flight after my badge popped, I didn't want to forget anything. So I immediately shared the flight plan and was just typing everything I could remember to try and make sure that I got everything, try to remember everything while it was fresh in my mind. Although it is kind of long and rambling, there may be some tips and tricks in here that you probably want to read through this. I'm going to try and remember as much of this as I can as I go through the fly through, but I would recommend you go through and kind of tick off all these items and make sure you don't blow it in the middle of the flight and have to start over. So I'll try and mention some of these things as we go. So this is the My Way flight off the website. It's from Toronto to Washington National in Washington, D.C. So we're at 313 miles, just perfect for the badge. I'm using the Beechcraft King Air. I just picked it because it's easy to fly and fast, so I wanted to get it over with. Normally I would delete these, the climb, cruise, descent, and approach. But in this particular one, I didn't, because I didn't want to change anything about the flight plan since it worked for me after I flew it. Might be a little annoying, but I just didn't want to change it. You might be able to delete them, but the problem is I can't go back through and test. Like today, I'll show you what I did. Disclaimer, no guarantee. I don't have any pull with the flight simulator gods to get you your My Way badge. All I can do is show you what I did, and my badge popped as I was nosing into the gate. I didn't even have to get all the way to parking, so obviously it won't pop today because I already have the badge. Let's go ahead and load the flight plan. Okay, so we're spawned in Toronto and we're cold and dark, as you'd expect. It's the My Way flight, so you need to be able to start cold and dark, but the checklists in the Beechcraft are pretty good, so it should be pretty easy. Okay, so I've already screwed up, so this is important. Notice that my ATC menu and my checklist didn't open up. That tells me right there that if I go to my assistance options, it's set to custom. If anything happens in flight that flips your assistance options to custom, you might as well just start over because you're not going to get the badge. So you want to make sure this is set to true to life and it stays set true to life for the entire flight. I'm going to reload my flight plan from World Map. One thing that's probably worth mentioning in general is when you're switching flight plans, especially if you're creating them in World Map and you're modifying them a lot in World Map, it's probably a good idea to hit reset. Usually loading pre-created flight plans, you generally don't have a problem. I've only had problems when modifying flight plans in World Map. Okay, now I've spawned in the aircraft. You'll see my ATC menu's up, my radio's off because I'm cold and dark, and my checklists are open and ready for me to execute. Now, I'm going to go through everything I did to get the badge to pop. I don't actually know which of these things I did right or wrong. Like many other people, I tried it many times unsuccessfully. Couldn't tell you how many times. It was enough that it got really personal for me. So basically, I'm just going to tell you everything that I was careful to do. I can't guarantee that's the magic answer, but I'm going to be overly cautious in pointing things out. Now I'm going to go through the checklist on the Beechcraft. One thing I was careful not to do was to use the find, feature, so it will point out the switches and levers. So if you're not familiar with the King Air, you might want to just sit in the cockpit and maybe run through, before you even try to fly, the MyWay badge. Go through the checklist a couple times, just make sure you know where everything is before you get in to actually try to get the badge. Okay, so we're going to check our parking brake. I've got a button, I'm going to check it. Parking brake set. Power levels idle. Prop levers max. Oh, that's my engine condition. My bad. Fuel cutoff. And then the battery switch to on. Alright, so our battery switch is on. So, here, let's open this up. Right ignition and engine start. Oop, that's my left. Okay, so we're above 12%. So now we can take our condition lever, our right hand one, low idle. Alright, and then we're just going to wait for the engine to fire up. Okay, so we've exceeded 50%. So now we can go back down to our switches. We turn off the starter. Set our condition to high idle. And we can turn on our generator. And then same thing for the left. So and we're running. Turn on the master. Check my lights. Okay, so for now, I turn on my landing lights while I'm taxiing. Again, don't know if that's a requirement, but the landing lights, I've been turning them on while I taxi, and I leave them on as long as I'm within 10 miles of the airport, just to be on the safe side. I want my nav lights. Now let's just turn everything on. Why not? Okay. We definitely need our beacon and our strobe. The wing lights and recognition lights are optional, I'm fairly certain. I don't know why you would have to have them on, but you are going to want to have your beacon and your strobe on. All right, and then they want me to release my parking brake, but I'm not going to do that yet, because I'm going to sit here for a minute. So we're going to get it with ATC. This is what I want. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is go ahead and request your IFR clearance. The important thing is get your squawk. And confirm your clearance. And we might as well set our altitude. Okay, and as long as I'm dealing with the autopilot, I'm going to go ahead and turn on nav mode, since I do have an IFR flight plan. I'm going to turn on my yaw damper. And I think that's it. I'll turn on my flight director. Alright. And I like the wind on my CDI, so I'm going to turn that on before I start flying. My source GPS, so I get my route on my CDI. And I think I'm ready to taxi. Let's see, we've got fuel. Okay, let's double check our checklist. So that's it for the checklist. Once we've... Oh, I forgot to tick that. Once we've released our parking brake, we're actually done. There is no additional checklists for the Beechcraft. Okay, so we really don't need pushback. I wish he would get out of my way. He better when I start moving, but I'm just gonna go. I purposely parked here. That way I can just swing around and I'll pick up the taxiway right there. And the reason I chose Toronto in particular is the taxi is really, really easy from here. But we'll turn our satellite on to make sure we don't make any mistakes. And our GPS follow. Oops. And our GPS follow. Okay, so let's request taxi. Go ahead and acknowledge. Okay, and we're gonna let's take a look at our route, make sure we don't screw it up. So we're looking for runway 08 right here. We're going to use via taxiway Bravo, which I don't know if Toronto's actually marked, but this is Bravo. Yeah, their gates are marked, but we'll see the signage when we get out. This should be Bravo. Is that our hold short? Nope. So that's Bravo to Alpha. To our hold short. Okay, so be careful and follow. The other thing I was careful to do was to make sure I kept my aircraft right on the line. You know, as much as possible. I don't know how picky it is, but let's give ourselves a little bit of visibility here. Okay, the taxi instructions are pretty easy, but we'll leave them open anyway. We can probably give this some transparency for now. And we'll scoot it up so we can see the signage. Maybe that's too transparent. So I'm just going to turn off my parking brake and off we go. Be very light on the throttles while you're taxiing. Okay, so you can see the signage now. There's Bravo. We're on Bravo. Oh, and this is Echo. So we're actually not we're actually supposed to be, I guess Bravo just continues along here. So I actually steered you wrong. So let's go ahead and get on the right path. You know, I cut across the grass. I'm not sure if that would screw up your badge or not, but I would be careful about making sure you don't screw up the taxi like I did. So we're at the hold short. Make sure you do not cross the hold short line. For runway 08, we followed taxiway Bravo, and now we're at taxiway Alpha for the hold short for 08. All right, so now we're ready to ask, well, let's shut off our warning because I turned on my parking brake. We'll go ahead and request takeoff. And while they're talking, I'm going to get rid of my yoke. And I'm going to turn off my taxi light. I'm going to leave my landing lights on. Make sure you acknowledge. Now, one thing you may want to check before you even take off, hit escape, look at your assistance options, and make sure they're still true to life. If anything you've done has forced this to flip to custom, there's no point in even taking off. Okay, so I've acknowledged my clearance. Let's go ahead and take off. I didn't point it out because I was using my buttons, but of course don't forget to deploy your flaps for takeoff. Okay, and ATC's giving us our handoff. Now, I've been using the B button to set my altimeter. Whoop. Oh, my transponder's off. Okay, so I've been handed off several times. I've climbed to 11,000. Now they're telling me to climb to 13,000. But at this point, I've turned on the autopilot. So I'll just set vertical speed mode. And at this point, I'll just fly by wire. Oops, I forgot to set my altitude. I'm looking in too close now. So what you want to do, is vertical speed still on? Yeah, it's off. Okay. So let's set our altitude. They told us 13,000. Vertical speed, pick up my nose, and about 1,000 feet a minute in Beechcraft. We can probably do 1,500 easily. So at this point, you're at cruising altitude, and essentially it's just a matter of responding to ATC from here on out until you get to approach. Oh, no, there's one more thing I did. Wait until you're at least 10 miles out from the airport, which I'm easily, and then don't forget to turn off your landing lights. I don't know if having the landing lights on inside of 10 miles is important or not, but I know that's, or at least I read, that is a recommendation for some airports. For grins, I did that when my badge popped. I also forgot to mention, make sure to retract your landing gear, especially if you're not used to flying aircraft with retractable landing gear. Since I already have the badge, we'll have no way of knowing whether leaving my landing gear out is going to be a problem or not. So at this point, it's just a sightseeing trip. I'm going to fly by wire all the way to Washington, D.C. You're welcome to hand fly, but since you're on an IFR, an instrument flight plan, ATC is going to bark at you if you change altitude or deviate from your course. So You know, there's no reason not to just turn on the autopilot, let the plane fly itself. And there's really nothing to do in this period of time except make sure that you respond to ATC when they point out aircraft, make an attempt to sight them, respond, whether you've sighted them or not. The other thing I should probably mention, and again, we're not going to be able to test it because I've already got my badge, so we won't actually see it pop, but I have live weather and I have my air traffic and my live weather turned off. I had those turned on when I originally got the badge. So if you just put your aircraft on autopilot, it really just becomes an exercise in managing the radio for about an hour. I purposely blew off ATC to get them to slap my hand and cancel my flight plan, and then I actually have reestablished contact and requested my IFR flight plan and a new squawk code. And in fact, I thought I was going to show how my true to life got switched to custom, but actually that doesn't do it. So something else that I did in the past in one of my many tries caused that to flip, but it wasn't ATC. That said, I would not recommend, if you want to get your badge, I wouldn't let this happen. Okay, so ATC has asked me to descend. I believe, well, I don't believe, I know, when I originally flew this, I just turned off the autopilot and hand flew from this point forward. But I'm going to go ahead and use the autopilot as much as possible since I'm talking while I do this, and I'm liable to screw it up. Alright, so we're almost at 3,000 feet. I had said that I want to make sure to have my landing lights on within 10 miles of the airport. Now, flight plan is telling me that I'm 17 miles from my descent waypoint, but that's south of the airport, so I actually want to know the airport itself. So what I'm going to do is manually select that descent, or it's actually an approach waypoint, and turn on my GPS follow so that flight plan recognizes my next waypoint as Washington National and gives me the distance to Washington National itself. But we're getting inside of 10 miles, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my landing lights. And I'm going to start slowing down just to give myself some time here. This is where things got weird when I actually flew it to get my badge. This was when the ATC started giving me weird descent instructions. So the airport's right here, so you'd expect they'd be giving me descent instructions because my flight plan asks for runway 19. Now this flight plan, again, I saved it straight out of Flight Simulator, and then I didn't make any modifications to it in flight plan because I was afraid to. I didn't want to screw anything up. Notice they haven't given me an approach yet either. I would have expected they would normally give me my approach earlier than this. But at least this time they didn't have me descend to 500 and buzz the airport. And we'll wait for instructions. Yeah. See, now they're giving us our approach. Now, again, I flew this manually originally, but I'm going to go ahead and put myself on the approach and let the autopilot fly it for now. So let's see if I can remember how to do it on this cockpit. I need procedures. I need my approach. I want RNAV 19 to Fergie. Load and activate. Make sure Well, now it's got to go. I guess we need to hit another waypoint before we hit Fergie. Let's take a look. We should be getting Fergie as our waypoint. There it is. Okay. I thought I said load and activate, but okay. So we had to fly past the airport. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. And now we're going to have to fly way back out so that we can get back to the Fergie waypoint that I wish they would have put us on 10 minutes ago. So my guess is it's this waypoint that's screwing us up. But again, I just saved this directly out of Flight Simulator with no modifications. So what we'll do after we land this, I'll show you what I would do. I would go ahead, if I was going to try again, I would actually modify this flight plan and try it again. The only reason I didn't modify it is I figured the best way to guarantee your success on getting the My Way badge flight is to give you exactly what I did. So that's what we're doing right now, is I'm giving you exactly what I did. So essentially what we're going to do now is we're just going to loop around to Fergie, and then we'll end up just following the Potomac straight up the river and straight into runway 19. Should be an easy approach, easy landing. So this is kind of weird. This is not the exact same thing that happened before, but they had me drop from 3,000 to 2,600 and then immediately had me drop down to 1,700. I don't know if that's normal or not. It just seems odd to me that they would give you 2,600 feet, and then by the time you acknowledge 2,600 feet, they immediately come back and tell you to descend to 1,700. So again, I'm using the, we'll probably speed up our descent a little bit. But I'm using vertical speed mode, and I'm going to just leave it on autopilot all the way until probably, oh, this map. I've got to use the pan and zoom. We'll figure it out. Whatever the last waypoint is, I'll turn off the autopilot and touch it down. I mean, I could be wrong, but 1,700 seems pretty low when I'm still miles from the airport. It seems odd they would drop you this low over these neighborhoods, but I don't know if that's normal or not for Washington National. Okay, and so this is where the glass cockpit comes in handy, because Flight Plan doesn't have all the published approaches for all the airports in it. But of course, the glass cockpit does. In another video, I'll show you how to add these waypoints in easily into Flight Plan. I just don't want to mess with this Flight Plan. But if you wanted to add the actual approaches for your favorite airport, you could actually just drop pins behind you as you go and name them as you go. Yeah, this is the same thing that happened last time. We'll see if it actually gives me landing clearance. Yeah, see, it's going to make me fly this approach twice. Because it's probably not going to give me landing clearance in time. And see, we're already too late. I mean, oh, they're going to take us down to 3. Yeah, there's no way. Oops, forgot to acknowledge that one. Yeah, see, they made me fly the entire approach. So we're just going to have to fly the same approach over again. Go back to Fergie. Let's go back up to 1500. All right, so we got landing clearance. Does this still got me going to Fergie? I'm not going all the way to Fergie. Okay, if I was still trying to get my badge, I would probably try and fly the entire approach. But since they gave me landing clearance, I'm gonna hook it around and land right now. Oops, I landed on the wrong runway. Don't do that. All right, and exit the runway as soon as you can. Acknowledge your handoff. Now what I did is exit the runway and then just stop. Turn on your taxi light, leave your landing lights on. And get your gate. Is that the gate we asked for? No, we actually asked for 10, but okay. Somebody stole our gate. Another nice thing about Washington National is that the taxiways are well marked. So we need to find Foxtrot Hotel. So presumably this is Foxtrot, and then we need to cross runway 22 right here. Well, I guess we'll have to look at the signage. I said it was well marked, but we'll have to figure out which of those crossings we're supposed to use. Cross runway 22 hotel, and then 19 Kilo 2. So those aren't actually marked on the... That looks like that's our route. Those, I said it was well marked, but since I landed on the wrong runway, I'm making this more difficult for myself. Obviously, if you're trying to get your badge, you've already failed because I landed on the wrong runway. But if you land on the correct runway on 19, this is Concourse B right here, I believe. So we can actually find our gate, I bet. Yeah, see, we asked for B10. Where do they have us? B22. So this is easy to get to as well. We're right on the end. So that's good. So essentially they've got us. This is an easy taxi as well. So we're going to cross, let's see, taxi to B Bravo 22. So this must be Foxtrot to hotel, cross 22 hotel, cross 19 Kilo 2, and then 22 should be one of these gates right in here. We should see a ground marshal once we get over there. This should be 22 hotel. So we're at the right place. All right, so we've crossed 22. Here's 19. And And I don't see any signage here, but that should essentially be our gate right in front of us. You're gonna have me run over your buddy. Duck, pal. And when I did my flight, my badge popped just before this, in fact. Oops, not quite far enough. Cut me some slack, dude. So that's the way I got my Way badge originally. Oh, I'm zoomed in way too tight. Now that we're back at the equator. So we can turn that off, go back to Washington National, and turn off satellite actually. Now, what I would recommend doing is go ahead and delete these. Download the flight off simflightplan.com/downloads. I'll put a link to it in the description. If I were you, what I would do is download this flight as is, the one that we know works, but I would delete the extra waypoints and save it as a new file somewhere on your hard drive. Obviously you won't have this big mess on your hard drive, or maybe you will, so that you've got a nice clean flight plan, airport to airport. You've requested your parking, you've requested your gate, you've requested your runway numbers. That should all be filed with the flight plan. And I'm guessing that if you do that and fly this flight, you won't get all the weird instructions on the approach to KDCA. But if you get the weird instructions, follow them to the letter. If they want you to buzz the tower at 500 feet or 300 feet, whatever they had us do, and then loop back around. Now, when I popped the original achievement, I actually flew it all the way back to Fergie, which was way out here somewhere, and flew the entire approach back in to Ronald Reagan, Washington National. Okay. In this video, I cheated, and since I already had my badge, and I just hooked it around and actually ended up landing on the wrong runway, which certainly would have screwed up my badge. The one on the website, KDCA, My Way, CYTZ to KDCA, is exactly the flight plan that I flew, but it does contain the silly climb, cruise, descent, and approach waypoints from the game on my flight plan. And I don't know why the game put my approach waypoint way out here when I wanted runway 19. It's like it was expecting 36. So I assume that's what that is. Or 01. 01. So it's up to you. Again, no guarantees. I have no pull with the flight simulator gods, so all I can do is show you what I did and what worked for me. This flight worked for me, with a little bit of aggravation at the end, having to fly the approach twice. But again, I think if you delete out those waypoints, you won't have to do that. Hopefully they'll give you your RNAV 19 approach way down the Potomac somewhere. You know, if they give you your approach way out here, then you should have a nice straight in, easy landing on 19. The requested, as long as they keep you in Bravo concourse, where is it? Keep you in the Bravo concourse. We asked for 10, but it doesn't really matter which gate. You can use satellite mode to find it and make sure you're in the right gate, but you should find a tug and a ground marshal waiting for you by the time you get there. Hope this helps. Good luck to everybody that's going to try it. Feel free to download this or any other flight plans from simflightplan.com/downloads. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, please.